Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you today.
Happy Monday, Dr. Paul. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Ready and raring to go.
Yeah.
No bad storms out there, except for politics.
Yeah.
There's a few bad political storms out
Bad
there.
smells and bad storms.
Right. But I'll tell you what, I was looking for something new and different, but this guy is so good at dominating the news,
Yeah.
and he is so controversial that people still want to, what's this guy up to?
Yeah.
And I speak of no one other than Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
He's a genius. Is he on every single weekend?
At once. Yeah.
On the Sunday morning programs?
All the time.
So
all the time. They love
he
him.
must be very special, or he's very smart. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe that is. So everybody hangs on there. Everything he says. Well, anyway, he had mentioned last week something about he was in charge of Christmas.
Yeah.
You know, and that he thought there was a pretty good chance that they could do it, except for certain conditions. But this came up again in his program, and he did say that. He said that he gives his blessings to it, except only for those people who are vaccinated.
That's right.
You can't enjoy your family if you're not all vaccinated.
No way.
And so I guess people feel relieved. I bet you there's been a lot of people really scared that they might not be able to give their kids any gifts for Christmas, you know, and celebrate Christmas. But anyway, it looks like it's going to come off anyway. And I don't know, should we send a thank you note to Fauci? but what a shame, you know, so sad. But the extent to which he became this celebrity. I just wonder what day it was that the people discovered Fauci. You know, his name's been around a little bit, but I'll bet you less than 2 years ago, I bet nobody knew who he was. And all of a sudden now, you know, every Sunday morning he's on to get the update to find out what we're going to be allowed to do. Yeah. So I don't know if people feel better about this. It hasn't made me feel any better. I don't think it's any of his business what I do on Christmas Day.
He's almost become a caricature of himself, I think, you know, and they, you know, the National Geographic and Disney released this documentary about St. Fauci. I think it was last week, and it totally flopped. On Rotten Tomatoes, it got like 99% bad and horrible. Everyone hated it. But he still goes on and on and on. He still feels that he has the authority to tell us what to do. And in fact, I think we should watch this for two reasons. For what he says, but also, Dr. Paul, for the fawning media. He would not be anywhere if it wasn't for the likes of ABC News and CNN and all these fawning mainstream media who, oh, please, Dr. Fauci, tell us what can we do. Let's watch Martha Raddatz. She's not a journalist. She's a hack. Let's watch a few seconds of her interviewing Fauci. Actually, well, we're getting it queued up here, but the way she asks him and begs him, can we have Christmas? Can we have Halloween? Mother, may I? I think we're getting this queued up here, but we can take a look at what Martha Raddatz is begging Fauci for permission for. If we have it. I guess we're still working on that. But again, Dr. Paul, it's just this idea that he can come on TV and tell everyone every weekend, we got to wear a mask, you don't wear a mask, you got to do this, you can't do that. And he flips and flops all the time. And it's just incredible to watch it. I don't know, do we have that clip, or are we still working on it?
No, we don't.
Okay, well, we're still working on the clip. But anyway, why don't we move on? We'll come back to Fauci. And let's move on to number two, what we're talking about, which is
also Fauci.
Oh, also Fauci.
Fauci in a different
Fauci.
Yeah, he's an important guy, you know. And this has to do with, you know, he's warning us about a fifth wave. I have trouble keeping up with all the waves. I knew when it came, and I knew when there was a secondary wave, and then all of a sudden you couldn't keep straight the complications coming from the vaccine boosters and all these different things. But anyway, there's a potential fifth wave.
Oh, fifth wave.
This is an official potential, and and Fauci knows about it. He's an expert on the fifth one, and he didn't say the fifth one is going to be here on such and such a day. But guess what he's taken care of? he now has absolutely a clear understanding on who would be to blame because it's not nature. There's nothing about natural immunity or anything like that. But what he is saying that when it comes, we have the evidence to show that the unvaccinated caused the whole problem. So there it is. There it is. How are you going to vaccinate against the unvaccinated?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just stick everybody.
Yeah, work camps. But the thing that I don't understand about this, Dr. Paul, is that his own Dr. Walensky herself, Rochelle Walensky, told Wolf Blitzer on CNN, the one thing that the vaccine cannot do is prevent transmission. She said it. We didn't imagine it. We can even find the clip. So if that's the case, if the vaccine doesn't prevent transmission, as the CDC says, that means if you're vaccinated, you can transmit the virus. So how is it the fault of the unvaccinated if the vaccinating are transmitting it as much as anyone else? I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense.
And then the only solution they offer, no matter what they say, what the problem is, the bottom line is usually get the vaccine, because I think their number one goal is the vaccine passports.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't matter to them whether they can pass on or not. But they expect the passport is going to be around, and there's some scary stories about the passport, you know, that it's just so bad I don't even want to read about them. They're so scary on what they may do or not do. So the evidence isn't completely in on exactly what it can do, but the principle is there. And there are people who are capable of contriving to do this and use it to monitor everything everybody ever does. And I don't think there's any doubt that it's a worldwide vaccine program. What bothered me the other day when I read where it said foreigners, you know, living in other countries, if they've been vaccinated, they have free reign.
Yeah.
Or if you're an illegal, you have free reign. But if you happen to be an American citizen, you better have done it under the government control in order for you to move about. But this whole thing that others than American citizens, of course, in a free society, we wouldn't be talking about this. It would be a medical decision to be made, and it would be made quite differently than the medical experts have been dealing with this in the past year and a half.
Well, they're using strong-arming tactics, and they're being very divisive, even though the president said this issue should not divide us, right? But they are, and it's kind of backfiring. And our second main story today is about California, of all places. Do you think there would be no problem? They'd be lining up. Everyone is dutifully obeying Newsom, but it's actually not the case. And this is an article that we first saw on Zero Hedge. But there's a real problem. 40% of state workers are not vaccinated.
Boy, how are they going to handle that?
Are they going to fire them all? I mean, what are they going to do?
Well, they'll try to. It seems like firing fits the scenario that if chaos is their goal, if economic turmoil is their goal, they're doing a pretty darn good job. But so this thing, whether they're teachers or policemen or no matter what they're supposed to be doing, doesn't seem to bother them at all. The amazing thing is the ability to manipulate statistics. Well, we know about the manipulation of statistics relating to COVID. But I think about the manipulation of the statistics, why you can look at some of the traditional statistics on what's the debt and what are the interest rates and what's going on here, how much spending there is, and there'd be some warning signs out there. But no matter what happens, it's very, very positive, and nobody, for the moment, are really panicking. There's no panic. I would think that there's a day going to become, and people are going to panic over realizing that everything they've heard about the economy right now is not quite so.
Yeah. Well, in California, you're going to have a public safety issue. Public health is trumping public safety. But from this article, we noticed that about half of all California Highway Patrol officers are not vaccinated. We don't know. They've known since July, where Newsom said, you better do it or else. So are they going to fire half of the entire CHP force? Maybe even if they can bump that up to 60 or 70, you're talking about firing a lot of officers. My father-in-law was a CHP. I mean, they've got a tough job to do. It's a car state. So what will happen? People are going to start crashing, and it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, and I would expect that to come, but just when. But it is a pretty impressive that 40%, with all the authoritarianism and threats and innuendos, that people would be frightened. But I think they're well past that. I think they hear it, they buy into some of it, but they also know this can't. There's no way they're going to watch and make sure everybody is going to have this vaccination. And evidently the practical result of this is that people aren't doing much about it. And the other practical result, politically, it's just used for noise.
Yeah.
And as long as you can beat a recall, I guess the noise has worked pretty well and has nothing to do with good common sense.
Well, another thing that I just saw, we didn't talk about this before the show, but it might actually be a little bit of good news, Dr. Paul, and I'm only half tongue-in-cheek, but they also said that only 40% of the TSA officers are vaccinated. So that might be a case where we might be in favor of firing.
Yeah, there you go.
Those others. So it's...
There was one special story this morning, which caught the eyes of, I bet you, most Americans,
Yeah.
because a very, very famous general died from COVID. And of course, that's Colin Powell.
Yeah.
He was well known, and we remember him so well.
Oh, yeah.
Because I even had some empathy for him, because he had been always smooth, and he worked his way through the system pretty well, became a major general, and there was a time until an episode occurred at the UN where people thought he's going to be the next president.
Yeah.
He was really shrewd and slick at this, but he passed away. And in the article, the first article I read about this, I don't know about you, it said that he was fully vaccinated.
Yes, yeah.
So immediately, since we have a constant study of vaccinations, how good are they and how do they react, we thought, well, once again, and I think you just mentioned that vaccinated people don't prove that they don't spread the disease.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of questions that go on. So here, the complications from this is that nobody knows for sure. But here he was fully vaccinated and died. But I think the next logical question is, I don't think there's any doubts about age playing a major role,
Yeah.
both good and bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like no matter which category is, if it's bad for a certain category, blame the kids.
Yeah,
blame
really.
the kids,
You
even
can't fight back.
even if they're the safest group around. So they have to suffer the consequences too. So, but it turned out, the second story I read about it was that he did have cancer.
Yeah.
But this is not a very good time to even challenge or think about it. But who knows what that means?
Yeah.
There's all degrees of people having cancer, but obviously it didn't help him any. And but obviously, if the vaccine was perfect, it might have helped.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing, isn't? So I don't know how people will react to that. They'll probably be somewhere like we're talking, nothing to be joyful about to prove a point, but there is a point in there that's probably worth thinking about.
Yeah. Now I remember my memory of Colin Powell was, of course, we were battling to stop this stupid Iraq war in '03, and it felt for a while like it was almost touch and go, like you were making some good points on the floor and some allies. And then I remember waking up that morning that Colin Powell gave his talk to the UN, and I was crushed. I was devastated because I knew how much sway he had, how much moral authority he was perceived to have. And I don't know if I talked to you, but I know I came into the office with my head dragging, thinking we are done, we are toast.
Yeah, and so the motion passed, and we went to war, legitimate war, sanctioned by the UN and the Congress, the whole works, and what a sad story.
The one thing about the Colin Powell, there are two things actually. First is the media, and now I would consider Drudge mainstream media now because he has changed quite a bit. But what's interesting is he had an above the fold huge thing. I don't know if we have our clip, we probably don't, but it said huge letters, Colin Powell dead from COVID, fully vaxxed. And then I checked back, I think an hour or so later, and there was an asterisk that said, was fighting cancer. And okay, that's legitimate. That's a serious comorbidity. But how funny it is that you're only allowed to count comorbidities when you're trying to back up the vaccine, right? When you're trying to make the vaccine look good. We didn't get to count it all this entire past year when however many 100,000 Americans died with COVID rather than from COVID. But now all of a sudden when fully vaxxed people die, well, then we have to consider their other comorbidities.
And that's the way this system works, right?
It's not fair. But it's not going to improve the view of people who are hesitant, who don't want to take the vax when they see.
They're going to see the headline that even the famous get the vaccines and they die too.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of cynicism has been developing over, and this is healthy in some ways. That people are skeptical of what the government tells the people, and that should be that way. And I've argued for a long time that all these commissions to study assassinations and who causes the riots, who causes the insurrection. Oh, we'll have a hearing.
Yeah.
We'll have a democratic hearing, and the real evidence about what went on, all the thousands and thousands of hours of video. That Republicans aren't supposed to look at that. They don't want to get confused with the facts. So that's it. So this is why people will eventually, in a healthy way, be very skeptical of what the government's telling them. Because one was the other day, I had to laugh at it because our famous president was giving a talk. I lasted for maybe 5 minutes or so.
That was pretty good.
And it was the same thing over. And he talked about the 3 or 4 different major problems we have, whether it was immigration or unemployment and all these kind of things. And he went through this, and he says, and every time he talked about a problem, he came down with the conclusion, it comes from lack of leadership.
Okay.
And I got to think, I was scratching my head. Yeah, that's sort of maybe true. I think there is some leadership by both political parties at times that drag us in through the mud.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Well, we want to talk a little bit about Glenn Greenwald and the famous insurrection.
Yeah, he knows about insurrections.
Yeah.
Now this person is worth listening to and trusting.
Yes.
I'd vouch for Greenwald.
Absolutely. Well, his piece is pretty interesting, and it talks about the trampling of the civil liberties under the guise of stopping this insurrection, and he goes through in great detail what was going on with the trampling of civil liberties. But this also dovetails with some new information that we got this morning, and we'll talk about Greenwald in a second. But from the U.S. Capitol Police monitors. And unfortunately, we don't have our video right now with us today, but Julie Kelly, who's been on this program, she's talked about it on Twitter, Julie_Kelly2, and she shows this is the Department of Justice was fighting the release of this stuff. They got 14,000 hours. They won't release any. Finally, they had to release this one little bit of it. And what did it show? Did it show the insurrectionists beating the Capitol Hill police to a pulp? No. It showed the Capitol Hill police standing by calmly as a row of people calmly walked in to the Capitol building, and it was door after door after door. They weren't beating, they weren't hitting, they weren't front. They were just standing back and allowing people to come in. So you can understand, people must have thought, hey, I guess it's okay to come in and look around.
They thought they were a tourist.
They thought they actually paid for it, right?
Yeah.
But it's fascinating because this really undermines the entire narrative that this was an armed insurrection to overthrow the government and install Trump in for a second term. And what it actually raises some of the questions, Dr. Paul, is was this a setup? Were they given the word, hey, back off and let these guys in, and then we'll say it's an insurrection?
There was some pundit the other day, and this was coming from the left. He says, people are starting to worry about this, and they can't make up their mind. Should they be very frightened because Trump is going to steal the election, or are they really frightened that Trump is going to win the election? So either way, they're probably going to lose. But so far, I think the American people lose when we don't get the information, and that's what we argue the case is. We have to have the information, and it's so frustrating for me to see medicine messed up as it has been. We shouldn't have a political debate over ivermectin.
Yeah.
Of course, occasionally we'll find somebody that can win the argument on that. So,
like Joe Rogan.
So that's the case. So.
Yeah.
But no, Greenwald's been great on the civil liberties and how they're being trampled. And this group that have been arrested early on, on the 6th. And I don't know if anybody really knows the exact number of how many are there and how each one has been treated. I think occasionally they found one time that must have been really bad because they said the prisoner was abused.
Yeah.
But it's not one of our proudest moments, and so if we could just get more people who would just say, well, just give us the truth.
Yeah.
That's what we want. Let us work it out.
Release the videos.
Yes.
Can you imagine if you came into town from the Midwest or somewhere, you haven't been in D.C. at all maybe or very much, and you walk up to the Capitol building, you see the Capitol Hill police, they're standing aside and everyone is going in. Any normal person would assume that, hey, this is neat, I can go in and check it out. I've never seen it before, I'm looking forward to it. And then at 4 a.m. a week later, the jackboots come and knock down your door and grab all your stuff and take you and throw you into jail where you sit and rot away for a few months. And that's what's happened. So I hope when the truth continues to come out, and Julie Kelly, again, she has done the best work on this and she has been relentless. When it comes out, hopefully the people that are being jailed are the people that put these guys in jail.
Right. There's one group of military people in this country that are held in high respect, and for physical reasons and for doing their duty, yes, they deserve it. Of course, they get involved in a lot of things that I don't think they should be involved in. And we're talking about the SEALs.
Yeah.
And we know several of them personally, and they're very decent people, and they're trying to carry out their orders as they see fit, as they must do. But the story is they don't like vaccines, and a bunch of them aren't taking them, and they're afraid of needles. No, so they're not getting it. So this is a controversy, and once again, what does the government do if you don't obey the rules? If you don't have your vaccine, they punish you. They punish you. You lose your job. You get canceled. Whatever they can do. So this is what they're going to do, or they're threatening to do, is cancel these SEALs.
Yeah.
Because they're not all vaccinated, and what they're going to how to best punish them is they will get fired.
Yeah.
They'll lose their job. They'll lose
Dishonorable.
that position. But then they're also going to say, hey, look, we spent a lot of money on you to train you to do certain things. The only thing I'd agree with there is a lot of military training of our personnel over the last 50 years has been excessive and caused us to do things we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the issue we're talking about right now. It's this whole thing that they were doing their job in good faith, and they come along and they say that if you're not going to have the shot, then you're going to pay back.
Yeah.
And it probably costs thousands of dollars. Who knows how much it costs to train a SEAL? But they are very well-trained individuals.
When we first saw this article, when I first saw it this morning, I saw it on the Daily Wire and a couple of other places. I thought, okay, that sounds a little bit too much. I mean, I really need to look into it because I think it might be overstated. And the Daily Wire puts it this way: Biden's Defense Department could make unvaxxed Navy SEALs pay for their training. So I went and I looked up the directive itself, and unfortunately we've got a little bit of a glitch over here with all of our computers, from the, but I looked it up, and it is a directive from the Navy. It was issued just recently, and it's Part 7A and Part 7B, talking about the punishment for those people in the military, the SEALs, who are not vaccinated. And they talk about disciplinary action for vaccine refusal. The CCDA may seek recoupment of applicable bonuses, special incentive pays, and the cost of training and education for service members refusing the vaccine. And so this is, and the word you mentioned is vindictive, but I would say probably, Dr. Paul, I wouldn't in the thousands, I think it might cost in the millions to train the SEALs. These are highly,
I was being
highly
a little
trained.
facetious.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to, basically they're telling these SEALs, we will ruin your life, we will bankrupt you and destroy you if you don't take this vaccine.
Oh, bad news. And but that's the system that they're using right now. And it reminds me of somebody explaining it to me way back when the Cold War was going on, and I asked about the discipline, in the Soviet system, and they were explaining that when the people don't obey, they don't get rounded up and put in concentration camps. That's too much trouble. It's always the removal of a benefit that the people have become dependent on, whether it's food or room or board or whatever. They just deny it to them. You lose your job, you lose your rent, and people get punished, and they become very dependent. Don't we hear this all the time? They say, I have to do it. I'm a single mom, and I'm going here. I've already worked 2 years with COVID, and I've been exposed, and I know I can't get it, and I have natural immunity and all this, and yet they are intimidated, and sometimes they do go ahead because it becomes so evil. This is the worst type of blackmail. What they're doing is they're putting the kids up.
Yeah.
If somebody is taking care of children, they're the sole breadwinner, and all of a sudden the government says, well, if you don't do what we tell you, you're done. So the parent, what will they do? How strong would the instinct be, to play their games and feed the kids? So that's why I always try to make the point, don't get started with the government, even if it's just a little bit.
It's a bad habit.
When they promise you a little bit of help, when they promise back in the old days, if we remember when we were fighting the IRS in 1913, well, in 1913, we said, look, it'll amount to a lot more money. Oh no, most people aren't going to pay anything, and the highest tax is going to be 3%, and that'll be it. And now what does Biden want to do? Anybody has $600 in an account will be monitored daily to make sure they know exactly how you spent your money, and make sure you have a vaccine passport.
Talk about the Chinese social credit system where they monitor every penny. Do we want to talk about Delta a little bit?
Yeah, I want to mention this because, in a way, I thought when I first read, I thought, well, oh, this is pretty good, and it is pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
A little bit late.
Yeah.
But the headline: Delta airline CEO ditches quote divisive vaccine mandate. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
But it was after he sort of, I guess, played along and didn't fight it. And most of them had the inoculation, but still, I still think it's good. He at least spoke out, because governments don't even like you to speak out. Sometimes that's what they hate the most. If you stand out on principle and challenge them. Matter of fact, that is the thing that we have to keep emphasizing for the people. You have to challenge what they're doing. You have to resist it, and that's why these town hall meetings are just great. So, and I was going to say, so far they haven't closed them down, but so far they're closing them down right and left. And then the FBI comes in and have their special interests lined up, and they purposely punish people for going out and speaking. It's not a free country. We need more Glenn Greenwalds and a few others. There are a lot of good people out there, but the frustration level is very, very high. But I still like to look at the big pictures, and the big picture for me is 100,000 screaming young people having fun. And they're not even talking about the guy next to you. Are you vaccinated?
Really.
And are you a Democrat? Are you a Biden Democrat? No, they're just out in one way. They can just forget about all this nonsense, and that's what we need more of.
Well, I hardly watch football anymore, although I've always loved it. But I did watch the Steelers last night. I know you're from Pittsburgh, and that was an amazing victory at the end. But, Ed Bastian is the CEO of Delta. And you're right, it's kind of a mixed bag because on the one hand, yeah, you did kind of coerce your people at first, and he kind of admits it. But he came up with a plan to get everyone vaccinated in the airline. But then he went on Fox Business a couple of days ago and he said, yeah, we do have to make some religious and medical accommodations for the employees, and we're not going to fire them. And he said, quote, by the time we're done with this all, we'll be pretty close to fully vaccinated as a company without going through all the divisiveness of a mandate. And that's a good attitude. Better too late than not at all. And that's also a lesson for Southwest CEO, United, and all the others. There is a better way to handle this. And I'm hoping that people will vote with their dollars and they'll go with someone like Delta, who's at least a little bit more sane than the other ones.
Yeah, and the competition is tough to find the one airline that is far superior, but there will be some relative benefits by going with people who have a little more respect for personal liberty. And it's sort of disgusting to me to see, of course we had to put up after 9/11 with the TSA and all that abuse that has gone on. But now I don't know how anybody can do this flying. They have to have pretty strong emergencies to get on these airplanes and fly. So that to me is sad. Hopefully we can contribute something to enlightening people with factual information that they can take and decide themselves. And that means they ought to have more information when it comes to things like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and all, because every once in a while now, or more frequently, they'll say, well, I don't want to do this, I want to do this. I always, if I had a question, I have a doctor I trust, I call up my doctor and we talk to him about it. And we need more of that, because this whole thing is the propagandists and people who say, well, but we have Dr. Fauci. He'll level with us and tell us what to do.
Yeah. Well, my closing, and we don't have the graphics, so it's not as dramatic, but new data came out about per capita COVID cases. Steve Krakauer put this up on Twitter. Well, it's official. Florida currently has the lowest per capita cases among the contiguous 48 states. The lowest per capita COVID cases with no vaccine mandates, no mask mandates, no forcing people to do this, that, and the other. That's why they hate Florida so much, because it's proving how wrong all of these interventions have been. And it's proving that, as we said all along, as Alex Berenson himself coined, the virus is going to virus. It's going to go through society as it does and as it has. And Florida continues to prove the case, and to a lesser extent, Texas.
No, I would have to say that DeSantis is probably rated pretty high as far as how he could be a governor of a state under these circumstances. That doesn't mean others haven't done pretty darn well too, and others are moving in the direction of it, but it's still, I think that the governors can react and can participate when the people are willing to support him, instead of making his or her life miserable. And this is why I think that people have to wake up and they have to know where they stand. They have to start resisting. They have to go to these meetings. Otherwise, they'll run rushshod over us, and too much of that is happening. We're back and fussing in so many schools now, but maybe this is going to be, maybe the school fiasco is going to be helpful. There's going to be more private school and more homeschooling, and the quality of education will go up. Maybe not the numbers, but the quality will go up, and that will be something worthwhile.
Let's hope so. I'm all done, Dr. Paul. I'm exhausted.
Very good. I want to thank all our viewers today for tuning in to the Liberty Report. We're going to be here continuously as long as we can find things to report on and try to get the facts as best we can. And right now, I do believe there are shifts in the right direction and more people are starting to resist, but there's also a lot of complacency and a lot of aggressiveness, and I think there's problems still coming, whether it's COVID or whether it's the financial problems. There's going to be a lot, so we will have a lot of challenges, but it can be simplified to the point, well, be on the side of liberty, and you're going to be on the side of solving a lot of these problems and not capitulate and go along with the politicians who threaten and intimidate. That's what we can do away with. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.